The main goal when we design the SuperModel is really to make a kite that is as fun as possible and makes every one of your sessions just better and more fun. Like Kevin would say, it is an extension of your body. So all you have to do is think about what you want to do and the kite's going to do it for you. So when you're jumping, it's going to help you jump higher. If you're riding waves, it's going to be exactly where you want to be all the time. If you're riding a foil, it's going to be drifting, it's going to be generating a lot of power even though you're flying in light wind. And if you're just free riding along, it's just going to make more fun because it's going to be very reactive and going to turn fast and be exactly where you want to be all the time. To achieve these characteristics, there's a lot of elements that go into the design of the kite. The first obvious one is the general outline and shape of the kite. And this is really the result of 20 years of designing kites, refining and getting to the point where like this is something I know works really well. The aspect ratio is not too high, not too low. I would say it's a pretty medium aspect ratio because this is very forgiving. It generates enough power, it jumps well, it does everything you want the kite to do. And then of course a lot of work goes into the bridle. Bridle setting is super important on the kite, and same thing, this is years of experience to get there. Also hours on the beach and on the computer to design them proper. And then finally, one thing that's really important to me is like the shape of the wingtip, because this is where your turns are starting from the bar input. So the wingtip is twisting a certain way, and then we have different aspects of it. The main thing is that it's quite square, so it starts to turn pretty quickly, and then we have a break into the leading edge curvature that allows for really the wingtip to start the turn quickly, and then it gives the whole twist to the kite. So you have a kite that generates quite some power during the turn, but mainly does not stop during the turn. That means it's accelerating through the turn, and that brings a lot of aspects that are positive for your riding. First one is that you can ride with a smaller kite because you generate a lot of power with it, but also means that when you send a jump, the kite is pulling through the turn, so you get a really good yank out of the water when you start your jump. Finally, when you ride a wave, you get a very constant pull through your bottom turn with the kite, so it's very easy to focus on your riding rather than having to make the kite stay in the position you want. So those aspects really add to each other. When designing a kite, there's the obvious things that you see, which is the shape of the kite, but one thing that you don't see is the bridles. And this is probably 50% of designing a kite. Making bridles proper is super important, and you can change the kite from good to bad by just adjusting the bridles to the right position. So it takes a lot of time between the computer, going back to the water, testing, adjusting, but when you finally get it, that's really how you get a good kite. And so the way we design bridles on the SuperModel, the main simple concept is that what I call a toe point, which is pretty much where all your bridles are pulling from. Let's say your front line attachment and your back line attachment are lined up. They need to line up with the center of effort of the kite. The center of effort of the kite is a virtual point in your kite that if you take all the forces that the wind is applying to the kite and you put them in one point, that's where it is. So if you line up those two together, that's when the kite, you jump and it stays in the air, has a constant pull, it doesn't move, it's very solid in the air. So that's a lot of work to get there, but obviously, with years of experience, we got it, and that's why the SuperModel is really so good. One thing we have on the bridles that's, to me, a very important point is we have a pulley that only allows the bridles to move forward. So only when you depower, when you're about 50% out on your bar, then the pulley is allowing to get more depower. So that means the pulley is moving forward, it never moves backward. Because when you're riding, it's against the little red ball, so it's pretty much exactly like a fixed bridle that would have no pulleys when you're riding, but when you need extra depower, then you get the advantage of the pulley. So you don't have the sponginess of a pulley bridle, you have a very direct feel, but you have the advantage of having the depower of a pulley bridle. The SuperModel is designed to be pumped up at a pretty high pressure, and we print on the leading edge, and you want to follow those numbers because really the structure is designed for that pressure. It's a pretty small leading edge, so if you don't put enough pressure, the kite's going to have more movement than it's supposed to have. But the small leading edge brings so much performance that it's really important for me to have that kind of design. So one thing you can do though is if you're a lighter rider or if you ride slightly underpowered, you can put a little less pressure on the kite, so you get a little more of turning speed. So really you can adjust kind of like the characteristics of your kite depending on how windy it is. Obviously Kevin in 40 knots is always pumping to the max, but when you're going to be foiling, you may want to put a little less pressure so the kite's going to turn a little faster. So one thing you may not know is like bridles are not just scaled up from one size to another. We actually work each size specifically. You know, bridles are different attachment point, different shape overall, but the goal is to get that same feel from one size to another, because the wind's not the same speed. The drag on the wingtip on the whole kite is different depending on the size of the kite, so it needs different work for each bridle. That's why getting all the kite size the same is a lot of work, but when you get it, it's awesome. We're really excited with this version of the SuperModel and really can't wait for you guys to get your hands on and have some awesome sessions with it.